The internet has been absolutely buzzing, and the Nigerian political and security landscape is currently experiencing a massive shockwave over a highly controversial headline that has been making the rounds across various social media platforms, claiming that prominent Islamic cleric Sheikh Gumi has issued a stern warning to the Nigerian military to stop killing armed groups in the forests or face heavy revenge. This statement has sparked massive outrage, intense debates, and a lot of confusion among citizens who are already exhausted by the ongoing security challenges in the northern part of the country. To truly understand what is going on right now in 2026, we have to look past the sensationalized headlines and dig deep into the actual context of the relationship between the military's kinetic operations, the cleric's continuous advocacy for dialogue, and the dangerous spread of misinformation that is currently shaping public opinion. For years, the Nigerian military has been engaged in a relentless battle against heavily armed non-state actors who have made the vast forests of the northwest and north-central regions their strongholds. The military approach, strongly backed by the government and the Ministry of Defense, has always been to use ultimate force to root out these camps, secure the farming communities, and restore absolute peace. However, Sheikh Gumi has consistently stood on the other side of this strategy, arguing that dropping bombs and launching continuous artillery attacks will not solve the deep-rooted socio-economic problems that gave birth to this crisis in the first place. When a headline screams that the cleric is threatening the military with heavy revenge, it is crucial to separate what the man actually said from what social media influencers and bloggers have twisted for clicks. Over the past few months, especially following the intense military clearance operations and the highly debated foreign military interventions in places like Sokoto State late last year, Sheikh Gumi has been very vocal on his platforms and in interviews. His actual argument, which has been heavily manipulated, is a warning about the cycle of violence. He has repeatedly cautioned that when the military launches heavy bombardments on these forest camps, the armed fighters rarely just surrender. Instead, they often retreat and unleash devastating revenge attacks on innocent soft targets like unguarded farming communities and rural villages. Therefore, the phrase heavy revenge in his actual context was meant as a prediction of the backlash from the armed groups against civilians, rather than a direct personal threat from the cleric himself against the Nigerian armed forces. Unfortunately, in the fast-paced world of digital news in 2026, context is easily lost, and malicious actors have taken his warnings and spun them into direct threats against the state. This situation escalated so much recently that completely fabricated stories began circulating, claiming that Sheikh Gumi had directly threatened the family of the Minister of Defense, Christopher Musa, telling him to stop the military offensives or face terrible consequences. This fake news spread like wildfire on platforms like X and Facebook, forcing the cleric to take actual legal action, filing criminal complaints and lawsuits for defamation and death threats against those who originated the false claims. The environment is so tense that people easily believe these extreme headlines without verifying the facts. The military, on its part, remains completely resolute and unfazed by the noise on social media. The mandate from the defense headquarters is clear, and the troops on the ground are making incredible sacrifices every single day to ensure that the forests are cleared of any individual bearing illegal arms against the state. The military leadership has repeatedly emphasized that they cannot negotiate with individuals who take up arms to terrorize citizens, disrupt agricultural activities, and hold the nation to ransom. They believe that applying overwhelming kinetic force is the only language these groups understand, and slowly but surely, the military has been recording significant victories, dismantling camps, and recovering large caches of weapons. However, the debate over how to finally end this crisis remains one of the most polarizing topics in Nigeria today. This is where the conversation gets really interesting, and if you are enjoying this deep dive into the realities of our national security and want to keep getting the most accurate, well-researched breakdowns of what is happening across the country, please take a quick moment right now to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support is what keeps us going, allowing us to cut through the fake news and bring you the pure facts. Now, looking at the broader picture, the situation with Sheikh Gumi highlights a massive divide in how Nigerians view conflict resolution. On one hand, you have millions of Nigerians who are completely tired of the kidnappings and the instability, and they fully support the military's zero-tolerance approach. They argue that offering amnesty or negotiating with these fighters is a slap in the face to the countless victims who have lost their livelihoods, their loved ones, and their peace of mind. They believe that treating these armed elements with any form of leniency only emboldens them and encourages others to pick up weapons, hoping for a future government payout. On the other hand, there is a school of thought, championed by figures like Gumi, that looks at the history of insurgencies worldwide and concludes that military might alone rarely brings lasting peace. They point to the amnesty program in the Niger Delta region as a blueprint, suggesting that if the government can provide basic amenities, education, and an economic alternative to the young men in the forests, the guns will naturally go silent. This non-kinetic approach asks for patience and dialogue, things that are extremely difficult to sell to a public that is living in daily fear. The tension has been further complicated in 2026 by an overwhelming wave of digital misinformation targeted at the Cleric. Just recently, fake videos generated by artificial intelligence and manipulated audio clips were widely shared, falsely claiming that Gumi was asking the government to officially include the armed groups in the national budget. Other viral fake news stories claimed he had been arrested by United States troops at the Abuja airport while trying to flee to Turkey, or that the International Criminal Court had issued a warrant for his arrest. All these claims have been thoroughly debunked by independent fact-checking organizations, yet they continue to shape the narrative and fuel the anger of the public. It shows how dangerous the information war has become. While the troops are fighting a physical war in the bushes, there is a massive psychological and information war happening on our phone screens, designed to create division, panic, and a complete breakdown of trust between the citizens, the government, and religious leaders. The reality on the ground is that the common man is the one suffering the most from this prolonged standoff. When you visit the rural areas in the northwest, you see the devastating impact of this crisis. Markets that used to be bursting with agricultural produce are now shadows of themselves. Schools have had to close down or relocate because of the fear of sudden abductions, denying thousands of children their basic right to education. The farmers, who are the backbone of the nation's food security, are terrified to go to their farms. They are caught between the aggressive clearance operations of the military and the vicious retaliation of the displaced armed groups. This is the heavy revenge that plays out in real life, not on social media. When a military jet strikes a camp, the survivors often scatter into neighboring unprotected villages, looting food, destroying properties, and taking captives to use as human shields or bargaining chips. It is a highly complex, deeply sensitive operational environment for the Nigerian Armed Forces. They are trying to eliminate the threat while doing everything humanly possible to minimize collateral damage and protect the civilian population. The leadership of the armed forces has continuously called upon the public to support the troops, provide actionable intelligence, and avoid spreading unverified narratives that only serve to boost the morale of the enemy. The military's position is that security is not just the business of the people in uniform. It requires a whole-of-society approach. This means traditional rulers, religious leaders, and every single citizen must be on the same page, presenting a united front against those who wish to destabilize the country. Interestingly, Gumi's belief in dialogue is so strong that even earlier this year, he offered to mediate for the release of the detained leader of the proscribed indigenous peoples of Biafra, showing that his philosophy of negotiation extends beyond his immediate geographical region. Whether one agrees with his methods or finds them completely unacceptable, his actions force the nation to ask very hard questions about justice, peace, and the price we are willing to pay for both. As the year progresses, the Nigerian government faces the monumental task of balancing these two approaches. They must ensure that the military is adequately funded, properly equipped, and highly motivated to protect the territorial integrity of the nation, while also exploring social programs that address the poverty, lack of education, and unemployment that make the forests an attractive option for desperate youths. The story of the cleric's alleged threat to the military is a perfect example of how complex Nigeria's security challenges have become, blending real-life military combat with high-stakes political rhetoric and dangerous digital fake news. It is a developing situation that requires everyone to stay informed, highly critical of what they read online, and deeply supportive of the ultimate goal, which is a safe, secure, and prosperous Nigeria for everyone.